You know, the whole idea of doing these 4 books was to give myself a break from the more serious ones I've been reading. And they have turned out to be the most heart wrenching books ever. And I should expect this. But it's a Regency. It's supposed to be light and love and stuff like that. These are absolutely heart wrenching. Welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina Kairos, T-I-N-A. This is where we read books, talk about books, no special effects, no D music, none of that stuff. And I'm telling you, be prepared for spoilers. I'm going to read the whole book. No secrets. I'm going to let it go. Alright, so if you haven't checked out this one, my review for this one the other day, go check it out. It's book 1. Today we are doing book 2, Remember Me. And get my glasses here. I am gonna spoil the heck out of this whole thing. And sorry for my lighting. I've got 13 pages of notes. Big, huge 13 pages. Huge. Okay, so I really should make a spreadsheet. I really should. Because we're going to be following the Wares a few more books, like the Bedouins. And the Bedouins are mentioned in here. We did the Bedouins last year a little bit. And we love the Bedouins. But I haven't made a Ware spreadsheet yet, and I really should. But I've just been reading these for enjoyment. So I'm going to share that with you. And by the way, after I finish this, I can't upload it to the internet because Flashback Monday is still uploading, and it's got another 3-4 hours to go yet. It's already been loading for 9 hours, and it's still got another 3 to 4 to go. It went a little long today. It went 2 hours, and it's taking 15 to 18 to upload. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, we got to meet our Marquise, Lucas Arden, Marquis of Roth, R-O-A-T-A, sank into one of the old brown leather armchairs in the library of Greystone Court in Worcestershire. He was sitting there with the Duke of Wilby, his grandfather. And what had happened is, his father died young. So there is no more heirs but Lucas. And the grandfather has decided that now is the time he's going to get married now. Okay. So Lucas is going to go along with this plan. But, so we got to do that. We got to have the discussion with him. Then the grandfather goes, oh, by the way, the doctor's given me a year to live, so I want you to get married now, this instant. Okay? So, then we gotta meet the fam. Alright? If you haven't met the fam, we're gonna meet the fam. um, let's see, now where does it start? So, Gwyneth, her sister-in-law, had been 24 when she married Devlin just before Christmas last year. Yet she was vividly beautiful and practically betrothed to a famous musician when Devlin had returned home from war in the early autumn of a 6-year absence. Philippa turned her eyes now to the carriage seat across from her own, where her sister sat gazing through the window. Stephanie was looking forward to being in London, even though she was too young to attend any but the most informal of entertainments. And she's, what is she, 16? And then, I'm trying to find where it says what happened. Oh. So I am the Dowager Countess of Stratton, she said. I am somebody, just as you are Lady Philippa were. Devlin is the Earl of Stratton. Now will you relax, you silly goose? Yet Philippa had refused the season when she was 18 and again last year when she was 21 because she feared that the family scandal of more than 6 years ago had spread to the town in general and that as Papa's daughter she would be ostracized if she allowed her face to be shown in London. Life at Ravenworth had changed after the scandal. She had been 15 years old at the time, on the cusp of young womanhood, her head filled and bubbling with the dreams of exciting future. They had had a close and happy family then. They had been loved in the neighborhood, but the day after the scandal erupted, Devlin went home. And that all occurs in the first book. And so Devlin and Ben went off to war, and Nicholas also went a month later. That's the other brother. And Stephanie was 9 at the time, and Philippa carried on as best she could. But nothing had been the same. They no longer had been the Golden family, and Ravenswood had no longer been the center of the universe, for all lived in a 5-mile radius. All the parties stopped. Everything stopped. And, where is it now? Let me see if I can find the page because it's very, very important to the story. So, after the scandal happened, um, on this particular occasion, James Rutledge, middle son of Baron Harrington, their neighbor, had come too, bringing with him a friend from his years at Oxford, who was visiting for Easter. There had been a buzz of interest over the visitor, for they rarely saw strangers in the neighborhood, and he was a titled gentleman, a marquis, though someone had said it was only a courtesy title, which meant, though, was that he must be heir to a real title. Philippa had been as curious and interested as anyone else, but she had forgotten all about the splendor of his prospects when she saw him, for he was quite the most gorgeous man she had ever set her eyes upon, tall, long-legged, perfectly formed, and handsome as well. But his hair, that was most striking feature, it was dark and red at the same time, and thick and shining, expertly styled. Philippa, with all the questionable maturity of an 18-year-old, had fallen headlong in love with him. James had introduced him as the Marquis of Ross, but had not presented him to everybody individually. He bowed to all of them a bit stiffly. Philippa had thought that perhaps he was on the haughty side, or perhaps he was merely shy and feeling daunted at having so many strangers stare at him, dumbfounded for the first few minutes. The men had gathered in a group at the end of the barn, as they always did at the start of the evening, when the women had huddled and chattered and giggled closer to the maypole. There had been more chattering and giggling than usual, of course, but Philippa had not participated in. She had been straining her ears to overhear what the men had said. "Give it a try," Sidney Johnson had been urging the Marquise when Philippa could hear them again. "Come on, I'll introduce you to one of the women, and she'll guide you through the steps and the patterns with the ribbon. If you could make it the blonde beauty," the Marquise had said, and Philippa had looked away sharply so that she would not be caught staring. She was the only real blonde among the women, but blonde beauty, really? "Ah, you mean Pippa," she heard James say. "Lady Pippa to you, Roth, the Earl of Stratton's daughter." And then the Marquis of Roth had said the words that had seared themselves into her mind and upon her memory and completely changed the course of her life. It was no exaggeration. "Stratton? She is Stratton's daughter? I do not dance with soiled goods, Rutledge." And that was the end of that. And then she lived with this for a while. And the following year, there had been no question of making her come out. Her father had died. After the year after that, they were leaving off mourning for him, and her grandmother died. Last year, she had simply said no when her mother asked half-heartedly if it seemed to Philippa if she wished to go to London. Then, early in autumn, Devlin had come home at last. Devlin and Ben's 1-year-old daughter, his wife, whom had married the year before, had died in the British battle tons, crossing the Pyrenees before the Battle of Toulouse. By then, Pippa had been 21 years old, still single, with almost no social life to speak of. She immediately depressed, though she hadn't realized it. And it wasn't until then that she spoke with Devlin and told him what had happened. So she lived through that. Then we get to know the other side, the other families. And then they decide to go to London. And Clarissa Ware, Dowager of Stratton, her brother George, and her brother-in-law Charles, and his wife Marion, and Angeline, their daughter. And we get a whole bunch of family history here. And then Philippa meets and talks with Sir Gerald Emmett, Lady Catherine's son. She meets Jennifer Arden while she's at this tea party. Okay? While she's at this tea party, and there's Jenny. And I'm hoping we will get a Jenny book at some point, or some kind of miracle there. I figure that'll be down the road a little bit. We saw quite a bit of Jenny in this book, and she was a really good character. She is Lucas's sister, I believe. So no one knew except Devlin, but he was in Wales with Gwyneth. Even her mother did not know. Philippa had never told her or anyone else until her brother had coaxed it out of her that one year. It had been her deepest, darkest secret for years before that. It had eaten away at her youth and happiness and confidence in herself. It had killed her dreams. So she's thinking about that, and she's with Jenny, right? And then she says, the Marquis of Ross assured his sister and his cousin when they asked that the Duke and Duchess of Wilby were well as could be expected, and did indeed intend to come to town within the next week or so. His grandparents are coming to town to see Lucas married. They want him married, period, and they're going to do anything they can to make that happen. So he comes over, and she's with Jenny, and it comes down to it. Where is it? See. So the Marquis of Ross was on his feet, moving his chair out of the way so the wheelchair could pass behind it, and bending, tucked the hem of his sister's dress about her ankles so it would not catch below the wheel. When he sat down again, he did not move his chair back to where it had been. It was now closer to Philippa than ever before. She was aware of the voices around them, seeming to enclose them in a cocoon of silence. When neither of them broke for a few moments, their eyes met. His were brown, but not very dark. There were hints of green in them. He opened his mouth to speak, but she forestalled him. She had learned something in the last 7 or 8 months since Devlin's return home from the wars. She had learned the importance of speaking the truth rather than suppressing it, and living with the illusion that all would be well in her world if she only kept quiet, and she was not well. And she says to him, "Remember me?" Remember me. Have we met before, Lady Philippa? But he had the ghastly feeling they had. Literally, they had not. If she was the person he thought she must be, that was. They had certainly not been introduced to each other. He, as the stranger in the midst, had been introduced, but he seemed to recall James explaining to everyone gathered in the barn that there were too many present to introduce him individually. He would never remember their names. Surely, as a joke, had then been suggested that he join the dancers and try his skill at one of the ribbon dangling bright and intimidating from the maypole. He, in spirit of the joke, he supposed, had suggested that he was willing to try if he could dance with the blonde. There was only one pure blonde in the group of girls, and young women gathered in a cluster to the maypole some distance away from the men. He had not seen any of them up close, including the blonde herself, though he had been given the impression that she was the prettiest girl among them. Totally unexpected, he had learned that Stratton, the Earl of Stratton, lived nearby. His name had been mentioned as something of a joke, a warning that the blonde was not just anybody. She was Lady Someone or Other, daughter of the Earl of Stratton. He had not danced with either the blonde or anyone, nor had he stayed to watch the others dancing. He could not remember leaving the barn, but he did remember very clearly now that the memory was in the forefront of his mind, that normally mild-mannered James Rutledge had been furious with him. He had told Lucas that he would have planted a facer on him as a prelude to pounding him to a bloody pulp if Luke were not a guest at his father's house. He had settled for blistering verbal assault instead, and Lucas had taken himself off early the next morning before the family was even up. "Was that you?" he says. "It was. Good God! But why was she so angry?" "She so very obviously was. By my recollection we were not personally introduced, though I believe I was generally presented to the whole gathering. It was a large barn, and the lighting was dim and flickering. I left with James Rutledge before the dancing began. And that was a long time ago. I was 21 or 2, I guess. You must have been a mere girl. I was 18. Do you really believe, Lord Roth, that you left early that evening only because you did not wish to be persuaded into dancing? Would not a simple no have sufficed if that had been the case?" "You left, Lord Roth, because you did not choose to dance with soiled goods." She even put particular emphasis upon the final words, as though she were directly quoting him, and good God, he believed she really was. So, she gets it out. She confronts him. Then we socialize a little bit. And the whole family decides that they want them to marry. The grandfather wants them to marry, and they dance at a couple of dances, and he's thinking about asking her, and she tells him no, and his grandfather takes it upon himself to write to Devlin when Devlin finally returns home. And the grandfather writes to Devlin saying, "My grandson is coming to your house and he's going to ask for Philippa's hand, and I expect you to say yes." Because he's a duke. He's like in his 70s. He's really old. So Devlin responds that he will see Stratton, but it will be up to Philippa whether she says yes or no. And she says no. And then, after she says no, she has a talk with Devlin. I mean, not Devlin. Lucas. She talks with Lucas, and Lucas tells her the truth. His big secret. His royally big secret. And she understands his secret. And she says that she will keep it. And Devlin asks what was his reason, because he knows. And she said that she will keep it secret and she doesn't tell Devlin. So then Lucas's grandparents are furious. So they invite Philippa over, they gentle persuasions, they have her spend time with the family, she gets to know Jenny more, and it's just a little persuasion here, a little persuasion there. And Devlin's a little upset with his grandfather. There's nothing he can do about it. He's the law in the house. Then the family goes on a kite thing with the kids. And it's more pressure, and Jenny gets closer to Philippa. And the Duchess and Duke of Willoughby put some pressure on Stephanie. I mean, not Stephanie. Philippa, and Arnold Jameson, son of a baron, approaches Jenny for her hand in marriage. He was really trying to court her. He was doing a really good job of it. His father has gambling debts up the yin-yang, and he needs money. And he admitted that he could care for her, Jenny. And Jenny's like, we need to at least care about each other. You need me as much as you need my money. So Jenny eventually tells him no. So that's why I'm saying I'm hoping she eventually gets her book. And then Lucas is at the ball, and her grandparents are at this ball, and her dance card is full except for the waltzes, but she's not allowed to do the waltzes yet until this Almac gives permission. The grandfather is at the dance, and he talks to Lady Jersey, and she agrees to give her permission to for Philippa to dance the waltz with Lucas. They dance the waltz with Lucas. The grandfather has a little bit of a stroke, and he blackmails Philippa with kind words. Please come back to the house and stay with Jenny during this time of my ordeal. Here she is. The family is going through this severe ordeal, and he's got Philippa coming with them. And so he's on his deathbed, he's dying, I'm dying. I'm asking you this question, do you love my grandson? And she's like, all right, yes. He goes, you'll be married tomorrow at 2 p.m. And an hour later, Lucas informs her that his grandfather has sent to the Canterbury, and they've procured a license, and they will be married tomorrow at 2 p.m. And then his grandfather, Devlin, does have a talk with Lucas. Lucas fesses up what the deal is, and Devlin understands, and Philippa and Lucas are married. And I had pages upon pages upon pages of notes to go through. But I will skip. So then, on their wedding day, after the ceremony, the Duke's health is failing and stuff like that. And he tells Philippa that he expects a grandchild 9 months from today because he's only got so many time living. And the ending is crying. You are literally crying your eyes out. It is so sad. It's a happy ending and a sad ending, and I was gonna come down here crying my eyes out, but I got control of it. But Lucas and Philippa, it's the grandparents, it's just beautiful. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. You will cry that this happens at the end of the book. So, there goes my light effing reads, right? So, we're moving on to book 3. Whose book is this? Oh, look! It's Jenny's. I was just talking about Jenny. It's Jenny's book. What did I say? And who's the other one? Who's book 5? The Dowager Is the Dowager? The Dowager? Well, that should be interesting. So, if you could all hit the like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Have a good one.